Hi, this is Possibilities. My name is Cecil Walker.
And I'm Adam Frower.
And today we are talking about peace. And I think that automatically elicits a lot of questions. The first of which is, what do we mean by peace?
That's a good question. I think the way that I would describe it is kind of multifaceted, but I'll start with, it's kind of the absence of conflict. I guess that's what I would say. And one of the things that I think is important to note is that this could be potentially, as many of us experience, like external conflict. Maybe that's between me and another person, or maybe that's like within my environment, there is conflict. And so it could be that this conflict is external to myself. Or I think oftentimes when people say, I'm just trying to find kind of my inner peace, it could be that I'm having a conflict within myself. Maybe I am torn between two choices that I need to make. Maybe it is that I feel like I've made a choice that I wish I hadn't. So maybe I'm filled with regret or shame. And so there's this conflict between, should I feel shame? Should I feel regret? Or should I let that go? Should I be forgiving of myself, right? So I think oftentimes we have an internal conflict that might prevent us from feeling peace. So overall, once we can get that conflict to subside, or we can find inner tranquility despite the presence of external conflict, then we can get to a place of peace.
Yeah, I think that that actually really does capture a lot of what peace might entail in an external and an internal kind of way. And I think it's worth saying that the reason we're even talking about peace in the first place, the reason we would even ask the question of how do you find peace, is because so many people seem to be looking for it themselves. This is something that people say really often in therapy, is that, you know, such and such is going on and I just want more peace. I just want to find some peace in this situation, or peace that gets me beyond this situation. And I think what's so interesting about peace, you defined it so well, because it applies to all of these circumstances that people could be in. People come in saying, I have depression or debilitating anxiety. I am going through a lot of grief right now. I have a lot of things in my life that require my attention and my work. And I just want peace. Peace in all of those different scenarios and situations. And not to like just spring a question on you, but why do you think peace works everywhere? Why do you think peace works in all of these different places? Someone with anxiety, someone with depression, someone who is going through divorce, you know, anything that life is throwing at someone, people tell us they want peace.
Yeah, I think if you go back to that definition, in some sense, there's like, the way that I kind of imagine it is like two poles, right? And there's like a big magnetic force on this side, and there's a big magnetic force on this side. And it's like, I'm being kind of pulled. And I think with anxiety, oftentimes it's like, what if this happens, or what if this happens, or right? So there's like just this internal turmoil of there's lots of possibilities. With somebody going through divorce, it's like I feel potentially like the social pressure to stay together, or I feel the need to help take care of my children, and I want them to feel like they grow up in a home where there's two parents, right? So there's kind of the social expectations or my own personal values and beliefs that pull in one direction, while in the other direction there is like, I am so unhappy and I can't seem to find a way to get along with this person. And so it's just kind of these pulling in different directions, which then I think results in, it's not that I'm stuck in the middle, but I kind of vacillate from, sometimes I'm on this side, sometimes I'm on this side. And that vacillating back and forth, I think, is what creates an absence of peace. I think in a lot of situations, I think it comes up a lot with people who have experienced interpersonal trauma, right? Like with somebody who is sexually assaulted, or some domestic violence situations, and again, it's like this, I feel like I should be connected to this person. I feel like I should have allegiance to this person. I feel like we've had a lot of good times, and I have memories that are fond with this person. So there's all these things that are pulling me in this direction. But on the other hand, I feel unsafe, and I don't like the physical abuse that I'm receiving, and I don't like, and I want to get out of this situation. I don't want to be tied to somebody who treats me this way. And so there's, again, kind of this, like, I go back and forth, and therefore I just don't have a sense of tranquility, a sense of stillness, because I'm always bouncing back and forth between one or the other option. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
No, I think that definitely does. It goes back to this word that we've been throwing around. It's the resolution of, you know, whatever it is that is going on in that situation. And from, you know, this description that we've come up with, I think it applies whether it's external or internal. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of questions that could come to me about peace and defining it and where it shows up and all these kinds of things. But I think the real question that people want to get into is, how do we get it then? How do we, in the midst of a situation, in juggling internal conflict, how do we find peace? How does someone get to peace?
I think that, you know, you and I have had several conversations about this, and so I'll probably come back to you with a question in a minute too. But I think one of the things that we kind of settled on is that it's a bit of a process. Mm-hmm. That maybe there are kind of steps along the way that we can get better at the various steps. And so I think the first step that I think is really valuable that you kind of pointed out, actually, so I'll probably come back to you in just a second, is this idea of acceptance. Mm-hmm. that whatever has caused this conflict or whatever situation came on that took the peace or made the peace difficult to grasp, I have to, in some sense, say that situation actually happened. I think sometimes we try to convince ourselves that maybe it's not as bad as I thought that it was or whatever, but that this is the reality of the situation. Right. And so my question to you is, if acceptance is that kind of first step, how do you get there? How do you get to a place to say, okay, this is the reality of what I'm dealing with?
The reason I think acceptance is difficult, at least in part, is kind of ironically because it is the first step. That's an automatic agreement of, I'm going to do the work that this now takes. You know, if I sign up for a workout plan, that first day is the hardest because I've now committed to doing the workout plan. I've had a few people tell me when we talk about like their workout goals and physical goals or whatever in therapy, and they'll say one of the things driving them is they announced it on Instagram the first day. They made this like commitment to, I'm going to do the hard work that this takes. Mm-hmm. And before making that commitment, you can enjoy the not having the responsibility for that commitment, not having a responsibility for the hard work. And so if you stay in this place of, this shouldn't have happened to me, or I don't believe this is my reality, or, you know, whatever it is that is resisting the acceptance part, you don't yet have to take on, I have some work to do. There's something I have to do. There's a path that I'm going to have to walk to get to the peace that I need.
So are you saying that finding peace or achieving peace or getting peace, however you want to define, that it's going to be difficult?
I don't think it has to be difficult. But I mean, even as we're talking about it, it isn't action, right? It is, you said a process.
Yeah.
You have to go through a process. And I think any process takes, if you want to think of it in physics terms, like energy to initiate, right? It takes, there has to be some cost in the beginning to start it.
Mm-hmm. And so in some sense, are you saying that sometimes that energy could come easily? Because I think there are some times where people are just like, peace just settled in on me. So it does take energy, it does take effort, but sometimes that could come easily?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, well, that's why we're using the word acceptance, right? Because that implies an openness, I think, that implies a readiness. And should peace be coming your way, or somehow the circumstances allow for peace to easily facilitate itself into your life, that I still see along the same openness, that same lines of readiness for that.
Okay. So if acceptance is the first step, what then comes after that?
So if acceptance gets you into the process of I'm going to go and get my peace or have peace come to me. I don't think I see it necessarily as like 1, 2, 3. You have to you have to do all these things. But what I think is now a major factor in you getting to peace is you have to have some concept of peace is possible, or any other word you might want to, like, couple in there with peace. I can get to a better place. I can feel better about the situation that I'm in. This thing can find some kind of resolution. I don't feel great right now. In fact, I feel like I'm feeling a lot of really powerfully negative things right now, but that doesn't have to last. I don't have to stay stuck here.
Yeah, in some sense, what I hear you saying, and this goes back to the very first episode of Possibilities that we did, is that in some sense, believing that change is possible, right? So if peace is the absence of conflict, in some sense, I have to have the expectation or the optimism or the hope that conflict could resolve. And therefore, if it's going to require effort, maybe I put in effort to make it change, or perhaps change will just occur, but I have the expectation that I'm going to move toward what I want life to be like post-conflict.
Right.
So this expectation that change is possible is inherently connected to achieving peace.
Let me ask you this, as we're talking about the steps that we go through, the things that are involved in getting to peace, are there things that you think make peace more likely, or maybe ease the process of getting to peace?
Yes, I think there is. I think a couple of things come to my mind right away is, again, I think I'm going to frame this as a choice, but I think we have a lot of ability to choose the people we associate with. We have a lot of choice in the situations that we choose to enter into. And I'm not saying that we have total choice, because I think, oftentimes when people get into a domestic violence situation or something like that, they didn't choose that situation.
Right, absolutely.
So I want to be really clear. I'm not saying we have total choice, but we do have a lot of choice. We do have, I can surround myself with people who support me, who build me up, who strengthen me. I can choose to leave a situation where I feel unsafe. I can choose, right? So there's lots of choices that we have. So I think in some sense, we need to be deliberate about those choices. When we experience a lack of peace, perhaps that's a moment to pause and to say, what choices have I made that contribute to this circumstance? And can I do anything to rectify those choices or change those choices? So I think that's one thing. I think another thing is, and this might also be difficult, but another, I think, thing that helps is flexibility, right? Just like you used, people who say, like, I'm going to go work out, right? If you go to any personal trainer, if you join any exercise program or whatever, they'll all say you need to do two things. You need to warm up and you need to cool down, right? In essence, you got to stretch, you got to make your body limber, you've got to prepare your muscles for the exercise that you're about to do. And I think the same goes for peace, that peace isn't just going to, like, appear, but there are things that we can do, right? If I evaluate my choices, then I can be flexible and I can say, if I choose this and it works out, great. If it doesn't, what am I going to do instead? How am I going to, right? So we can prepare ourselves, kind of like the warm up, to become flexible, so that then in the moment if peace, dissipates and all of a sudden conflict arises, I can now say, okay, I have some choices here. I can choose to engage in this because I want to, because it's meaningful enough to me, because it's important, or I can choose to distance from that and I can get out of a conflictual situation because that's the flexibility I'm choosing to ensure. So I think I think those are at least two things, is
Right.
exercise choice and work on flexibility.
I like both of those things because they automatically endow you with a sense of choice and control, and maybe even power in the situation that you might have otherwise felt a bit like you were powerless or you didn't have much control over what was happening. And so if someone were to enter into their conflicted situation, trying to take those things on, trying to find flexibility, trying to make the right choices, seeing that they can make choices, I think that automatically, like you were saying, that kind of pushes you along the road towards peace, because now you have ability, now you have agency, right? This isn't happening just at you. You're also responding to it.
Yeah, and I think as you were talking, perhaps a third thing kind of came to my mind, which is the idea of, and I think it's connected to like optimism, right? Like I think in some sense, believing that I can pursue greatness. I don't know how to say it other than that, but like that my current situation isn't the extent of what is possible. In some sense, thinking, what do I want to achieve, or who do I want to become, or what life goals do I want to pursue, and so I think too, having that like sense of purpose, like constantly pursuing something that you find valuable, which I think again takes you back to kind of that self-evaluation, that choice of like, I'm going to choose to become this kind of person or pursue this kind of a thing. And therefore, when something in life comes along that's in conflict with that purpose or that life goal or direction, then I can choose to not engage with it. So then what could have become a conflict doesn't become a conflict, because now I'm driven toward what I want to become. I'm living in line with my, some people would say living in line with my purpose, or I'm becoming who I'm supposed to become, or whatever it is. But when I know what I'm pursuing, what could have been conflictual now isn't, because it's not in line with what I'm trying to achieve.
It makes that less relevant. The currency it holds now is somehow lessened. To begin to take this thing home, something that I always think of whenever we have these kinds of conversations is, on the back end, what is the prize then? Why should I accept the situation I'm in and start to try to make choices that lead this way? What do I get from peace? What does it look like when it shows up? Why is this something that I would really want to value in my conflicted situation? What do you have to say to those kinds of questions?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to what you said, right? So many people who come to us, whether it's in interpersonal conflict or whether it's their own situations, so many people are saying, I just want to find peace. I just want there to be calmness. I want there to be stillness. So I think inherently it's something that we all pursue. And so I think the prize in and of itself is what we're looking for. So I think that's part of it. But I think the other part of it is, this might sound really grandiose, but we can then move forward with singularity, right? That, again, if we go back to that conflict, I'm being pulled this way, I'm being pulled this way, in some sense, neither of those things are actually being achieved. I'm just vacillating. Sometimes I'm doing this, sometimes I'm doing this, or sometimes I get closer to this, and sometimes I get closer to this. But we're actually not achieving anything.
Yeah.
And so if I can resolve the conflict, and if I can move in a fashion of peace, then things actually become accomplished. I become the kind of person I want to become. I achieve, maybe I do start losing weight because now I've moved forward in a way that feels consistent and peaceful with who I am. So I think then we start to see progress. We start to become who we want to become.
Yeah. We've been using this word in a kind of figurative way, internal peace or sense of peace. And it's kind of metaphorical almost. because there isn't an actual war going on, or, you know, there's an actual, not in every situation, at least violence that needs to be stopped. But I do see that almost literal peace in what you're saying. A lot of people who have come to me in therapy and said that they want peace with themselves or peace in their life, however they phrase it. You know, they're dealing with really, really difficult things like drugs, traumatic sexual experiences, violence, even. They're recovering and coping with these really, really difficult things. And when they say peace, I think what they mean is that they want to be done fighting with the consequences of those things. And that's the literalness of it, I think, that I see in it. They want that war to end. Yeah,
I think that's really important and a beautiful sentiment, right? Of like, I'm at war with myself. And when I can stop that war, I can now become who I want to be.
Exactly.
So now agency, I think agency is also a byproduct of peace.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so I think that's what we've got for today. We'd love to hear your thoughts about peace and how to resolve conflict. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, please subscribe below. Let us know what you think about this process. Please send us comments. And if you find that this content might be useful for other people that you know who could really benefit from finding peace in their lives, please share this with them so that we can help other people to kind of move forward in a way that's good for them as well. But thanks for being here.